Shel Israel. You're not? I hope Shel is not jet lagged.
What?
So when we were talking earlier today, Shel was mentioning that over the last 20+ years, he has coached 500 startups with respect to how to make pitches. And I'm sure, like Arvind said, that's something we also often find ourselves lacking in terms of how to make good pitches. So Shel's going to talk about that. And really happy to have Shel Israel with us at the event. Shel's the author of, just so I don't get it wrong, Naked Conversations with Robert Scoble, co-authored the book, and coaches startups, and also works with larger companies, larger product companies and larger technology companies with respect to the whole how to reach out through the social media. So works with both large companies and startups. Though Shel said he prefers to work with startups, just as the larger companies pay his bills. So I think it makes a lot of sense. So he's here to share his passion in terms of how startups can make better pitches. Just so you're clear, this is not about startups. This session is about movie making. Shel, on to you.
I've got all these other microphones. I was going to get an extra thumb to make this presentation, but I decided not to. I turned it on.
Oh, you did wrong.
Can we get a little more volume on this one? Yo. That's a California word. I don't know how to translate it. This is a daunting thought. I've been asked to talk about making great presentations, and here I am making a presentation. What if I suck? It's kind of scary. Just a tiny bit more about me. I'm a professional schizophrenic. My first love has always been as a writer. My first job as a writer was covering junior high school basketball for a local newspaper. A few centuries later, I was still struggling with the same issue. While I love to write, there isn't much money in it. And to support my writing habit, I've been consulting for a pretty long time, almost exclusively technology startups, primarily in Silicon Valley, but also a few big companies such as Dell, Wells Fargo. Who? Oh, yeah, I've heard of them. But you're going to ruin my whole talk, man. Stop picking on me. But, see, now I have to check my notes again, you know? As a reporter, I've covered a great number of startups over the years making presentations at tech conferences, primarily in the US, but very much similar to what we have here today. So my job has been to be a professional critic on one hand of presenters. Secondly, has been as a consultant, I've coached companies on how to pitch, present, talk to the media. 500 is a made-up number, but it's been a lot of companies over a lot of years. Like Vinod Khosla, I can brag about my great successes, but then I would have to name my far greater number of failures. And like Vinod, I very much agree that to really get to where you want to get, you have to take the risks and fail every now and then. I hope today is not one of those days for me, and I hope the next time you present, it's not one of those days for you. Then the third part of it for me is in 2005, I wrote this book and got to started traveling all over the world, presenting in rooms like this, talk similar to this, but more often on social media. So I've looked at presentations from all three sides. I've been the reviewer, I've been the coach, and then I've been the guy up here. And I have to tell you, this is the most difficult. And if you're going to do it for your company or in any other case, take it very seriously because it's a lot harder than it looks. You have to remember to hold the clicker at your cues also. That's one tip right there. It worked. This is not a movie star, but he could have been. Steve Jobs was the greatest presenter any technology, the entire technology industry ever produced. He had magic, he had charisma. And I could stand here right now, I have a grizzled beard. I'm a little older than him, but I have a youthful look. I could change this to a black turtle, well, I tend to sweat a little, so I'd never have a turtleneck. And I often wear blue jeans, but I usually remember my belt, which Steve never bothered to do. Maybe he was being frugal, maybe, you know, maybe he had thumbtacks on the side, I'm not sure. In Silicon Valley for the last several years, I've seen countless young startup entrepreneurs stand right here wearing blue jeans, black tie, and trying to look terribly cool with sometimes beards that weren't quite ready to grow out. And they all would end with, oh, I almost forgot one other thing, which is Steve Jobs' classic closing, and nobody could do it better than him, and everybody who tried to do it better than him had an audience that started saying, he's no Steve Jobs. Well, as you can see by now, I am no Steve Jobs either. Nor are you, nor is anyone else. I have certain qualities, or I'm told sometimes that I do, and so do you. And I guess my first, who am I competing with? Is that a spiritual thing? I'm hearing voices. No, it's coming through there. Is there a cord that I can pull? Okay, I can't do anything about that, can I? Loud mouth. Oh yeah, one other thing about speaking, don't get distracted. What were we talking about? When you think of how you present, don't assume anybody else's character. Don't become a movie star, don't become Steve Jobs, and God, don't become me. Think about who you are and what you're good at. If you are very eloquent, then you should try to be eloquent and articulate. If you have the ability to inspire and motivate, do it. If you're an engineer and your passion is technology and you really aren't comfortable up here, just talk like you talk. The engineers in the technology business, surprises, surprises, are the most valuable property we have. The rest of us are sycophants who live off of their brilliance. And if we tend to talk better than them, someday they may be so rich they can hire somebody to strut in front on the stage while they can go off and go invent something else. This is my favorite author. How many of you are familiar with Malcolm Gladwell? Great. There are many reasons I like Malcolm. One is I met him many years ago and he urged me to write a book. I think he was drunk at the time, but I followed his advice and it worked out okay. Two is that he is a magnificent storyteller. And storytelling, I'm hoping, is one of the themes you're starting to hear about. Because the best way to give a presentation is to tell a story, your story, a stories. And the worst way is to get into the minutiae and detail that are sure to put most people to sleep. Because candidly, all they want to know from you is what you have is useful or interesting to them. In Malcolm's most recent book, Outliers, he looks at some of the geniuses that seem to have been born out of nowhere with this natural great ability to be brilliant above all other things. And a couple of them are Bill Joy, who's one of the four founders of Sun Microsystems. Another one is another guy named Bill Gates, who he's in nonprofit work now, but he did a lot of stuff with a company called Microsoft for a while. And these two guys grew up at about the same time in different parts of the United States. And while other kids were out there doing baseball, which is an American spin-off of cricket, They were buried in the basements of 2 private schools. And what they were doing in the basements where they were getting on timeshare with old mini computers and learning to program, self-teaching themselves to program, and they spent an average of 10,000 hours practicing, fiddling, meddling before anybody but their parents ever heard of them. And Gladwell looked at them, and then he looked at people through history, and it turns out that the closest he can make out, before anyone ever heard Mozart play the piano in public, he practiced for 10,000 hours. Now, you guys are in startups. I assume many of you are in startups at least. And you are very busy. If you're not in a startup, you're very busy. And if I say, well, before you do this, take 10,000 hours to prepare, you would laugh me from here back to California. But you do need to practice. I practiced this talk. My dog walked out of the room. My wife had some, I think she had to read the Yellow Pages or something like that. But I practice in front of the mirror. When I get insomnia from jet lag and I'm in India, I walk back and forth in the room till the hotel calls up and says, somebody's complaining that you're talking and it's 4 in the morning. This happened. You won't get perfect, as I haven't, and you'll also discover a few things about practice. You'll discover where the things don't hold together. You have some ideas, they're random ideas, and one of the problems you have is to make an interesting transition from business model to marketing plan without it just being boxes. And we'll get to that in a couple of slides. I see some really, really interesting presentation structures. It reminds me of the original US TV sitcom called Saturday Night Live. Dan Aykroyd used to do a routine called Bad Opera. And he would lean back at the end of it and he would end with the same line. Awful. Simply awful. And I have to say that with the thousands of presentations I've seen, a great many are, and what amazes me is the same mistakes are made over and over and over again. Hopefully, you can extract from everything you're trying to say a single statement. It's the why. It's why we care about you. It's why I can go back to whatever it is I do, and suddenly I cannot leave you out of my life because you've either inspired me or offered me something new that I haven't heard about before. And if I do it, the course of my business and my life may change. Every Indian who briefed me on what to say here told me that Indians have a tendency to drill down and drill down and drill down and get intellectual. Don't do it. I beg of you. For the sake of every audience that may be listening to you, don't do it. Because you are competing with a power that will win. It's called email. People will look down. They'll look up at you occasionally because they're actually hitting return on their computer. But they're gone. They're gone. You made them work too hard to figure out why they're listening to you, so they stop listening. The chase. Get to the product as fast as you can. I actually timed the issue of companies that did best at TechCrunch in the US, and before that, the demo conferences that go back a full 20 years. And almost everyone who won awards in those conferences got to the products in less than 45 seconds. I could slice it closer and say in under 30 seconds. The only thing that's more that you have to get out before that is your name and your company. Sometimes it's on a screen behind you. In case you forget it, you can check. But I don't know whether I care about you or not if I don't care about your product. So let's get to it. Show it to me. Let's see if we're wasting each other's times, or I'm suddenly your customer, your employee, your competitor. The press is going to write about you and tell others how great you are or not. Just get there. Need I say more? I always do anyway. People stand up and they adopt languages. Worse than that, they get coaching from marketing who gives them adjectives. First, wonderful, exotic. Imagine this. You know, if I imagined, all I usually imagine is how to get out of the room discreetly. Naked Conversations by the central point of the book was that with social media, we are going from this broadcast era into something new and better called the conversational era. And in this conversational era, we talk to each other, not necessarily as best pals, but as professional colleagues. And we talk to each other, we see each other's eyes. I see you're nodding, oh, you were nodding, now you're fiddling with the bag. But I'll start looking at you because you seem to be a good audience. And I'll be looking around. I can't look at you guys back there because of the, in my country, when you have lights like that in your face, there's a policeman telling you to put down your weapon and come out with your hands up. Just talk about what it is, what it does, and who it's for, so we can figure out the boxes it belongs in, even though there are factors going on that are bigger than boxes. Those factors are dreams. We'll get to that in a minute. But you don't get me pumped up by using pumped up words. You get me pumped up by telling me things that are useful or interesting. And I guess I got to this already. If you got a slide that says simple is best, I think it's kind of self-evident. But whenever you're talking in a conversation of any kind, if you go on too long, as my granddaughter tells me I do every time I talk to her, you have gone on too long because you're talking and no one's listening. And in business and talking to the press and whatever you do, if you're the only one doing the talking and the other person may be even smiling at you, chances are you lose it. You don't know what that person wants to know about you. Keep your message as simple as possible, your language as clear as possible. As a journalist, I love companies that come in and talk to me about the business model. It tells me a great number of things. Number one, I have probably not written about the business model of a company in 20 years. I'm a shiny objects kind of person. I write about dreams. I talk about human trends. Either you're going to make money or not, but I'm not really interested whether you do or not. I may like you, I may be on your side, but as a writer, I care about my readers. And my readers are coming to me for reasons other than business models. I think VCs find my stuff worthless. Well, the feelings are somewhat mutual. They'll never invest in me. Some of the people you talk to, you may be recruiting. Some of the people you're talking to may be asking too many questions, and you might start wondering whether they're taking this information to compete with you or not, which is fair game. It's fair game. It's part of the game. Besides that, I think every one of you should be in social media, and they're reading you anyway. These are not baseball players. And they're wearing colors that I haven't seen before. But as you evolve, there are several things that happen. If you're a startup, your company starts with 1, 2, 3 guys. They're friends. They have an idea. They have a dream. And if they stay that way, the dream will eventually sputter out or become a nightmare. You have to build a team. And when people judge you, they're going to judge you on the quality of the team. I just made fun of VCs. But every VC I've ever asked says, after technology comes team. Do these guys work together? Do they have a weak sales operation? How about support? How about support? I always wondered, if you're an Indian company and you need good support and you're not getting it, are you going to outsource it to us? We have some people who take the jobs right now. I love this slide for a lot of reasons. but any person launching a product in any company of any size who is not in a hurry is a fool. The market is changing every day. Your opportunity is in a window that is closing slowly or quickly shut. And if you don't have a sense of that urgency when you present, then nobody is really going to feel the excitement of what you need to do and want to watch you get to that finish line. One of the hardest things when you're talking to an audience is, I only know a few of you, thanks Gautam, thanks for being a friendly face. Problem is I can't see your face because of the lights. We won't get there though. I don't know you well enough to know what I have to tell you that's just relevant to you, so I'm keeping it top line. I'm trying to talk in generalizations, but it doesn't work if I don't give you two senses of pictures. One is the big picture. If you're launching a new product, I hope you're trying to change the world, because if you're not, I'm not all that interested, and a whole lot of other people aren't. But somewhere along the line, there's got to be a smaller picture. Years ago, I consulted a company called Homestead Technologies. Its founder was Justin Keach, who actually did a great imitation of Steve Jobs, and looked a little like him. He would start almost every presentation this way. My company is Homestead Technology. We're building something to last 100 years. Let me tell you what we're going to do this quarter. I love that. I love that. He was going to build it one brick at a time. It didn't happen that way. Homestead Technologies was acquired by a company called Intuit. And he had a problem with the CEO and left after his earnout ended. Funny world. I said this already, but I hear so many words from the people I'm talking from, but I don't hear disrupt enough. It's the Bernard Coslaw school of thinking. Change the world, or at least start off trying that way. If you don't think really, really big, what you're going to end up with is going to be worse than a failure. Failures have hard lessons that you will learn and remember the rest of your life. You're going to end up with something mediocre that trudges along very nicely. Might as well go to work for the government, any government. And I mentioned this earlier too, but this is my backdrop. Actually, I use it to cheat because I tend to lose my place a lot. 5,000 years ago, people sat around in caves and they grunted to each other and they were telling stories of a hunt that happened, and they had already invented wine. How do you like that? Before the wheel came wine. And they would drink a little, and they would go on, and the hunters would tell the story with grunts, and they'd pick up a stick and would gesture, do things in the dirt. And then they would all pass out, except maybe one, too young or too small or too female to hunt. And he or she would take a stick and dip it in blood and berries, blood because it's a story about the hunt, and berries, and go to the cave wall and start painting. And this was the beginning of blogging and tweeting. This is the beginning of storytelling. This is the beginning of culture. And I believe that the human animal is wired to stories. We live by stories. We establish religion in stories. We justify our foreign policies in stories. My country sometimes is prone to fairy tales here, but we won't go there. PowerPoint is a backdrop. Actually, I should stop there and say in 1987, for a Sri Lankan company called Nashoba Systems, I launched PowerPoint. I think you know they ended up prosperous and they did not go back to Sri Lanka. But I sometimes ask the world to forgive me for this because it has ruined more good presentations than anything I know. You can listen to this guy talk for 3 minutes and it can be passed down for 5,000 years. Or you can see a PowerPoint slide that lasts 5 minutes and it feels like 5,000 years. Keep it in background. How many people here love large organizations? 0. That's funny. That's what I always get for an answer to that question. What we don't like about them is they dehumanize everything. They have websites that make it impossible to find a real human. You're supposed to go to FAQs, and I bet nobody frequently asks most of the questions that are on there. You pick up the phone, and you spend 25 minutes hearing, your call is important to us. So please stay on the line, and if you need assistance any faster than that, go to the window, open it up, and plunge to your death, because we don't care. And we like to deal with real humans. I don't want to talk to Intuit. I want to talk to the guy at Intuit who will help me. I don't want to have an FAQ when the product I just bought from you isn't working and I'm in a hurry and there's nobody to help me. I go to Twitter and ask them. That usually works, but companies have a greater responsibility. You need to be the guy at, or the woman at, such and such a company. You need to represent it, and you need to show, and this is where personal brand comes in, you need to show that your integrity is somehow or other braided to their integrity. And if you see a large organization filled with individuals who have integrity, maybe you just won't hate them as much, or not believe them. A few closing thoughts. I know some of you are saying, thank God. What you're doing, I don't care who you are, it's tough. If you're trying to do something that hasn't been done before, it's daunting. And when you tell the story, there's a tendency among some people to show how hard it is. Don't think about that part. Communicate the optimism that you have. Communicate a sidebar, but the number of times I've been told in my long history in India, I got here Monday, I've heard how many problems you have and how difficult it is, and it's all true. But the people in this room are the ones that will begin a process that can change all that a lot faster than you may realize. Show that optimism, believe in that optimism. Not only will it make others believe it, it might make you believe it. Tone's very important. If you're too humble, people in the audience will be sympathetic to you and consider you a loser. If you're too proud, you're an arrogant asshole and it isn't going to do you much good. So you need to find that combination of, here I am, I have this idea and it's a dream and I'm doing everything I can. How am I doing so far? I won't ask you. And above all, finish early. In demo and TechCrunch, a place where I have a lot of experience, I love the number of people that stand up and say, I only have 6 minutes to talk to you, and that's a shame because I have a story that's worth much more time than that. They just spent 30 seconds telling me that, leaving them now 5.5 minutes. And the word loser goes through my mind because they agreed to do something, and now they're kvetching to the audience about the rules. And those rules are set for the sympathy of the audience who don't want to hear people drone on and on and on like I'm doing. And finally, have fun. And it's kind of a funny thing because that seems low, obviously. No, fun is one of the most valuable aspects of business of all kinds and is vastly underrated. When you're having fun, you win. When you don't have fun, you don't. The good news is if you're not having fun long enough and you're worth any metal, you might get pissed off enough to go out and do your own startup company. That's it. That's my story. I finished 8 minutes and 17 seconds early. Thank you. Thank you, Shel. Thanks.
Thank you, Shel. So we have about, I think, a little over 20 minutes. We can take questions. Just so no one goes on rambling, I've told them to give only one mic, and that's me. And anyone can ask a question so long as I'm holding the mic. And I will pull the mic out after 20 seconds. I mean, Shel just talked about the 6-minute picture. This is 20 seconds. 20-second questions. Yes. Hands up, please. Anyone? Yes.
Yeah. So This is all about a visual presentation, but mostly you need to send email to VCs so that they will call you.
Let me try coming up here because I can't see you and I hate that. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Let's try again. What did you have to say?
So mostly VCs, you need to send them email first, right? How to summarize your pitch in email. This is all about visual presentation. So if they are okay with your email presentation, then they might call you for this.
The question is how to make good email presentations, email pitches.
How do you make the first page so that
I understand. First of all, there could be a cultural thing, but of the 5 or 6 ways you can reach me, not as a VC, perish the thought, but as an editor, email comes last. I'll look at it, but usually it reads like a marketing committee assembled it, and I have no interest in that. The first thing I would do if I were approaching VCs is not have a form letter of any kind. I would start by reading what I could on the internet, through Google, through social media if possible, and know who you're talking to. And if you know who you're talking to, you might start with a reference of, I saw that you invested in such and such a company 3 years ago. Well, we ... Or some piece of information that shows you know who they are and you're pitching them for some reason other than, I'm a startup and you're a VC and I need money, which really won't get you the money. Next question.
Yeah, I think it's coming from this side actually. Yes? Yep.
No more, oh. God.
What about humor and presentations? Good. Any tips for that?
What about what?
Humor. Using humor or to capture interest.
Yeah, I never use humor in a presentation.
Pushing that you, I mean, you use good humor, obviously. Everybody laughs at that.
Well,
Sometimes
actually,
it
you
doesn't
hit the
happen.
key point. In slide number 2, if you saw my PowerPoint presentation, I said, do what you're good at. And the truth is, when I was young, I wanted to be a stand-up comic. I tried it. Everybody told me to sit down, so I gave it up. But I use humor because I think I'm good at it, and sometimes I just die, and it's awful. And I very often, as I did today, I start with a joke, and if nobody laughs, I get all the humor out of it right there. There are sometimes when you have an audience that just don't think you're funny. And if you keep trying to be funny, you'll lose. If you're good at storytelling, if you're good at humor, if you're good at whatever, do it. If you're creative, the same Justin Kitch, who was a very good presenter, one time did a 6-minute presentation, a demo, by creating a song. And the slides just went through it, and he won Demo God. Product was awful. But it was a great prezzo because it happened that he and his co-founder were very good musicians, and they had both played in college in bands, and they had both aspired to be professional, and they wrote this clever thing, and everybody went around singing it for the rest of the show. I also remember a demo conference where I forgot what its name, but there was got onto YouTube, there was a TV program in the beginning where they had a blender and they threw things into it, right? Well, they did that for a demo, and it was hilarious. The problem is, everybody remembered them as the blender guys, and nobody could tell you the company, their business model, or anything else. So there are limits to your humor. Your job is not to be the funniest guy at the show, although I'm trying hard. Your job is to get your points across. I use humor for another reason. I use humor because it's the best way to get people to remember the points I'm trying to make. Much better than bullet number 1, be funny. Bullet number 2. So, any more questions? Oh, that's your job.
Hi. Well, when you're talking to a number of people and whatever the things which you say, does this change when you're talking to, say, a limited number of people?
Yes.
That's one.
Yes.
Right. And how do you, try to judge his, a state of mind, and accordingly you change the, the tone of the presentation? And of course, the point C is, what is the best combination of the graphics and the content which you put across on the page?
God. You started off so easy. Okay, what was one again? Okay, I'll give you all three because no one else is trying, but go ahead. What was one again? What was your first question?
The first thing is like when you're talking to a number of people, of course
Yeah,
you have
I remember now. Okay. The larger your audience, the longer you will take. And that's very important to realize that. I begin with 2 points. One is we all speak English, but there is an accent problem. I tend to talk very fast, and when I do that, I'm going to lose a few people. Just like when Indians talk fast to me, if you slow down, I understand everything you say. And I thank you for that. So the other thing is, I'm up here, I can't just talk to you guys. I'm shutting them out. I'm showing my wrong side to a third of the room. And you can't do that. But if you're in a small room, get rid of the PowerPoint. Just sit there and talk to the people. You know, or keep the PowerPoint in front of you and remember the points. The question 2 is integration of graphics and talk. That depends on a lot of stuff, but I use, oh, it's gone. What have you done? Don't. Okay. I use PowerPoint as a teaching aid, and I try to make it memorable and entertaining, but it's an aid. If I were developing a certain product, there are times when PowerPoint graphics would be important, but if you decide you're going to do a quadrant, and lo and behold, you're in the upper right-hand corner and all your, it doesn't matter. If you're going to do checklists of features, it doesn't matter. It's all horseshit. It really is. But if you have a new product and you have PowerPoint and you have a good broadband connection and you have a slide that you click and you show the product doing something or you show people using it, you've done something that's pretty effective. Right now, most of us think of PowerPoint as a one-dimensional flat screen, and it can be more than that. So that's something to consider. What was your third point? I see you liked my first answer. This one was okay. Let's try the third and see how I did.
Switch to a smaller group. That was the middle.
Oh, yeah.
There were a few more hands if you don't mind.
There is more one.
Okay, very quickly.
When you start preparing for presentation,
Yeah.
and as I said that there's only a couple of people whom you think that we have to change the tone of the presentation.
Yes.
So do you stick to the
If I have to speak to you guys, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to talk to you two guys.
No, do you stick to your initial plan, or you also...
No. I come into a room knowing the one point I want you to walk away with, which is Shel Israel is great and phenomenal, and I'll buy everything he ever writes again. But all you do, no, that isn't my key point. But I come in with one key point, and I know that I may completely screw up my order, I may forget things, and I did. I always forget a few things. I just stick with the plan of communicating to my audience with as much power as I can. We have other people. Oh, good. I can come over here. No, I can't. There you are. Okay.
Yeah. So when we are not ready for the VC funding, or VC is not ready to fund us, in other way, we still need a funding. At the time, we go for angel or any other funding people. How do we pitch for the angel funding in the initial stages when we are in the concept stage? How do we pitch them?
So your question really is, how do you pitch angels differently than first round Series A venture?
Yeah, when it's in the concept stage.
Okay. Angels have a different interest. They want to give you a little money and flip it real fast. Maybe they'll stick around, but they want the transaction. Their mission is to resell you for more money as soon as they can. Series A is a whole other story. It's a lot more money. One thing, they're going to take much more control of your company away from you than the ventures have. And number two is, along with money, they better have some wisdom for you or it's going to be a bad deal. Because they're going to be sitting on your board. They're probably going to be controlling your board. So when I have helped companies, which I haven't done a lot of, with Series A venture, I teach them to interview the venture capitalists as much as they present. Because what the VC can do for you, other than to, you walk in with this basic argument, give me $10 million for 1% of my company, and they say, we'll give you $2 million for 90%. So you're talking numbers. There's a transaction going on. How you present your company needs to present a realistic path to big growth. It's a joke in America that startups with no hope for it always go into venture and say, we expect an IPO in 3 years. No, they don't. They hope to be bought before they have to be bought before they figure out monetization. I guess Intuit can get away, but a startup's job is to get customers who love you, who are addicted, and the venture capitalists then, I remember Twitter began as an IPO play. And no, it didn't. It began as an acquisition play. And along the way, one of their VCs, a Union Square venture guy who's legendary, and I can't remember his name, said, thank you. Say it again? Fred Wilson. He looked at him and said, you guys are far too valuable to be acquired by anybody, and anybody who acquires you are going to destroy what you started. And you could argue that that's already happened and is still there, so clearly going to be an IPO, and yet they still don't have a monetization model, so it's a very interesting situation. So I would say the angel is more of a sales call, and the Series A is more of a relationship call. And it may begin with PowerPoint, but all you really want out of the PowerPoint with Series A is for them to say, tell me more. Because all it is a door opener. It isn't going to close anything. As a matter of fact, I would argue that the purpose of almost every presentation is to get somebody in the audience, somebody relevant in the audience to say, tell me more. Which happens to be one of the points I forgot to say.
We've seen in all the presentations, we've seen the topic
You're next.
storytelling is one of the main thing when we have to use in presentation. Here, we are pitching a business plan, something very serious. So can you just tell me some of the examples where we can say it in a story mode, where we can impress the investors?
Okay. Thank you, because that was one of the great stories I forgot to tell. Who's that guy? Munjal Shah is Indian-born and moved to Silicon Valley. He was a sequential entrepreneur. I worked with him when he was starting a company called RIA, a name that didn't make a lot of sense to Americans, but it was the name of his daughter. And when he went, I actually helped him with the presentation. It's one of the few I did. And I had all kinds of PowerPoint ideas and numbers, and he put them all aside. The product was photo recognition software. It eventually got bought by Google. Unlike earlier series I had stock options, so this is one I really liked. He began this way. He said, in my computer I have 37,562 photos. All of them are called 37242.jpg. How do I find my son, my Rhea? And then he put up a picture of Rhea. And he said, little girl, not little boy, sorry. Here's my kid. Isn't she cute? And he says, there she is. On the first day, we took her to the playground, and he actually made them go with it for about 3 minutes. Longer than that would have taken it too far. He said, now here's the issue. If you're parents like me, you love your kid, you take all these pictures, and then when you want to show them to somebody like I do, you can't find them. So we've invented software so that I can find the 250 shots of Rhea among my 37,580 photos. Now that's a story that is human, emotional, personal, which I like, but there's a subtitle going on there, and the subtitle is, I have that problem, and he can fix that. Rich. We'll all be rich. And the punchline or the takeaway for an investor conversation has something to do with rich. We're all going to be rich. Thank you, because that's one of the things I forgot to tell earlier. Now down here, this lady is beautiful. Is it Surrey or Sorry? I never know. It's beautiful, and I wanted to talk to you, so here's my chance. Let me tell you a story. No, go ahead.
I just want to listen to the story, so let me listen to it and then I'll ask you.
I was only joking about the story. I wanted to hear your question.
Okay. When you make a presentation, especially in a product, like we have a product, and we tend to address all pain points of the audience, and depending on who the audience is, we tend to. And we have a limited set of time into which we can jam everything. So is it a good idea to tell most of the things about the product, or just give an inkling and ask them to come for more? So which would be?
I will ponder that for about a tenth of a second. Say fewer things better. Always go high in a presentation. The objective is to get people who matter to say, tell me more. Okay. Pain points I love, because every pain point is a story. And if you don't have a real story because it's new, make one up. And then at the end of it say, by the way, I made that up, but it would have been true if we weren't so new. Because if you don't, then you have a credibility issue. But there is no presentation that I've seen that could not be made better by storytelling. None. Well, there was one back. No.
Hi.
Hi.
Do you have any specific tips for quick elevator pitches where typically you don't have any presentation?
I spent most of my career in Silicon Valley. Most of the buildings are 2 stories high. We used to take the stairs because we're all into fitness there. But because of 2 stories, it comes down to keep it simple, keep it focused. You know, you can get off the elevator and say, that sounds interesting, tell me more. But if somebody says, and you've all had it, I've had it, none of them seem to be, I can't see you, but I've had it here. So somebody says, hi, who are you? I say, and all of a sudden their mouth is moving and they're talking about what they do. I haven't expressed an interest in it, and the way it's being told to me is no value to me, but that person came with the mission of handing out business cards and giving their pitch. I already told you. I told you. And that's just boneheaded. Nobody wants that kind of pitch. But if you say, let's take Manjal Shah again, we have a photo recognition system so that you can find the people you love on your computer. Oh, tell me more. More? What? I did not have sex with that girl. Next question. Whoa. Yes. I almost didn't go over.
Hi, my question is how important and how critical is body language when presenting to someone, and how does one control it? How do you do that?
That's an excellent question. Body language, it's sometimes turn on television and turn off the sound and watch how much of a story you can see by the body, and then remember my advice that you're not Steve Jobs, but think of that as a model. Then the next thing is go to, I don't know the Indian shows over NASSCOM, but go to places where product presentations are given. Turn off the sound and watch the body. You can destroy a good presentation by doing things. Here's one. I want to tell you my really exciting new product. Here's another. Let me tell you. You know, there are all kinds of ways that what you do is you distract from the message that you're trying to give. Now, you had 3 presenters today who are really, really great with presentation. The Intuit CEO, he was a slight pacer, but when he got to this point, he knew when to turn around, and that's when he was going to say the thing that was most important to him. Vinod works out of a triangle. It's almost the holy man, but he never gets out of it. When he had trouble with PowerPoint, which he handled, I thought, quite well, he never let his body show that the PowerPoint problem was screwing up his presentation, was going to make him go over, was going to make the whole conference go over. He stayed completely calm, and as he got angry, which he clearly did, he put his hands in a triangle. And this position is certainly not a position of anger. This is a position of anger. There are also other little things. There are pen clickers. Let me talk to you, click. Let me tell you a key point of click. And after a while, all you're doing is hearing and seeing the clicking. And pacing, after a while, starts looking like a poor animal that's in a small cage. And then there's the thoughtful guy who kind of wanders away, and he thinks he's got you now. So all of that is cut the crap. It may not be verbal, but your language can show pride, strength, enthusiasm, friendliness, but you move very little. And when you speak, you need to always remember what you're doing with your body. One last, or are we done?
Yes, one last question. Since we started a few minutes late, I think we can go a few minutes over. Okay, I hold the mic, so I have the last question.
Okay.
Shel, I mean, you make pictures for people. How do you make it in a way that they make the pitch for you later?
Could you repeat the question?
Making pictures to impress the audience is one thing, but impressing them enough that they go make the pitch for you later. Impressing the audience so much that they make the pitch for you later. Viral.
How do you make it viral?
How do you figure the viral in this room?
There are people who get paid to tell you how to make things viral. I have a word for them: bullshit. You don't make anything viral. Audiences make things viral. Something goes viral not because I say it and I want all of you to go out and do that. I can't do that if I reward you with T-shirts or coffee or... What happens is I tell you something that is so cool you got to tell your friends. They think it's cool. They tell their friends. And the most successful way this happens is at almost no cost and almost no effort to the company. And then they did something. They created something that was great. And then, you know, you go to a conference and you leave and somebody says, how was it? It was okay. See anything interesting? Yes. Now that's interesting. Because they just chose one out of 50, 60, whatever. And you can't make that happen, but your product can.
Thank you, Shel. Thank you so much for the wonderful insights. And Vijay, can I request you to please hand over the souvenir?
It's not money, is it? Thank you. Thank you very much, Vijay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
You might want to say the feedback.
Oh, yes. Program note, please. Please note the feedback numbers. Please do just take a few moments and just pass on the feedback on this session. I think those numbers.